Well, Quan Chi has been out long enough in Mortal Kombat 1 where his overall viability is seemingly a hot discussion here on YouTube. Although from what I've seen in comment sections and more, that people are definitely better at voicing their opinions than others, will say that there are points being made all over the place about just how good or bad this character actually is. Now, I've been playing a ton of Quan Chi, and I've played him enough now that I'm fairly confident in putting my own points across, as I've played Quan Chi for many years, from all the way back in the MKX days, and I do feel like I've got a decent game plan going, although there are some clear weaknesses. Join me today where we discuss just what exactly is wrong with this character, and how I think things could hopefully improve down the line. Now, do I think this character sucks? No, but I definitely think he has troubles that a simple game plan adjustment just can't fix. Now, it would be unfair to spend the entire video just saying what I think doesn't work, because we must always give characters props when necessary, and, to be fair, Quan Chi does do some things kind of well. The first and most important is his zoning. When Quan Chi actually has control in a match, and especially in the right matchup, his keep away is some of the better keep away in the game. That's not to say it's the best. There are characters that are overall better at spending a whole game zoning than he is. Characters that come to mind are like Kitana with Kung Lao, who, in my opinion, that's the best zoning team. But he has enough there that he can make his ranged game pretty dangerous at times. This is pretty much why he has the favourable matchups that he has. I know many Quan Chi players, myself included, think that Rain is a very good matchup for him because you're fighting a keep-away character with your own much faster tools, and you have projectiles that can chew through the water bubble and they allow you to keep ranged control for the entire match. That and his full screen standing 4 being a punish on things that most characters can't punish, and this is not just matchup specific, this is everything. Paired with a cameo that turns your standing 4 into a 40% combo, that can be a game changer. Another element to his ranged game are the buttons that work with it. Now, I'm mostly talking about standing 3 and standing 4 here. The standing 4 speaks for itself because it's like I just said, full screen and it punishes a lot of stuff at full screen. But the standing 3 is a often underrated button because it is a fantastic anti-air when the opponent jumps at various times, and it excels at anti-airing when the opponent's further away. The fact you can jump cancel this move means that while performing it, there's really no reason not to input a forward jump in case it hits, because if it whiffs or it's blocked, nothing happens. It's a very safe move to throw out at distance. The better matchups that Quan has are matchups where you can keep range control for as long as possible. The reason this works is because it prevents the opponent from being in the situations that Quan Chi is the most vulnerable. It is the avoiding of these situations that allows Quan Chi to thrive. The problem is, there aren't many of these matchups because most characters inevitably are going to get in. It's the nature of an assist-based fighting game. Cameos can cover your back. This isn't new to Mortal Kombat 1, it's just the way things are. Let's begin by discussing possibly the most obvious drawback, and that's HP, or lack of in his case. When Quan Chi first came out, we all noticed that he has 900 HP. That's the lowest in the game, and it only belongs to other characters you kind of feel were initially designed to be a glass cannon or something. Now, you could somewhat understand this for the first few days because he had a lot of zoning and people were finding various setup tools with the bone cage and ranged buttons that could do things that other characters can't. So was this justified? Well, only time would tell. Turns out, in my opinion, not really. You see, Quan Chi's overall tools are not strong enough to warrant having the joint lowest base health in the game, because his advantageous tools aren't really overwhelming enough to say, yeah, this makes sense to me. His damage can be decent with the right cameo, but his combo tools are resource intensive, and his overall damage isn't that high to say that he is a glass cannon. And his keep away, while it is very good in some instances, also doesn't work versus other characters for various reasons, whether it's the slow recovery on some of these projectiles, or buttons, or the opponent's own lightning-fast tools to close in space. QUAN will spend most of the game on defense, often with them right next to him, and the low health means he's losing in perhaps 2 touches? It's very difficult. An issue that low HP characters have is that their cameo utility takes a pretty substantial nosedive. If there are other cameos that might help you in some matchups on paper, some of those cameos will lower your HP to 850, which in this meta is as risky as you can possibly get. I personally do not think that 900 HP is justified with this character. But in the same breath, I'm not sure about 1000 either. 950 at least is the middle ground that would make picking lower HP cameos less of a risky choice. It's the fact that you can sometimes be at 850 that just doesn't make sense to me. The next thing to discuss about QUAN is something not as talked about among players, but for me, this is actually his biggest downfall, and that is gaps in strings. When you're playing any given match as QUAN, and you want to establish anything on block, there are 3 strings you always use, and that's 1-3, back 3-4, and 2-1. 1-3 is your fast punish, back 3-4 is your check for hitting out low pokes as he doesn't have a good mid, and this string is a good hit confirm into a full combo, and 2-1 goes into the overhead low that, with some cameos, can be full combos. The problem is, all 3 of these strings have a punishable gap after the first hit. An opponent can punish you for committing to even a second hit on any of these combo strings, and it means that applying any pressure is an absolute nightmare when the opponent knows about these things. Now, I'm not saying they're going to armor you every time, but some characters can totally neutralize Quan Chi's chance of doing anything but zoning the entire match. Yeah, some armor isn't that great, and you're trading a bit of health for them losing a bar, but in a lot of matchups, this armor puts you back to a distance where you may not be very comfortable, a mid-screen range, or sometimes even closer, where the opponent is now in the driver's seat. What's worse about this, and where I fear his worst matchups will eventually lie, are characters that can combo from their armor for good damage and a situation afterwards. I genuinely feel that Kung Lao could eventually be your hardest matchup because every armor is a full combo. The same thing with Tanya, and the issue with these characters is that even if you want to bait the armor, you have no choice but to do a single hit and then block, hoping they armor through so you can punish. But what about armor you can't punish, or in Lao or Tanya's case, armor that they're plus after? QUAN's pokes are already the worst in the game, and in those situations on block, you have no choice but to hold what they're going to do next. And all this because you decided to try and do even a single combo string. The gaps are my biggest issue with this character because in quite a few matchups, it just totally annihilates the character. It makes you feel like you can't do anything. So, I briefly mentioned Quan Chi having the worst pokes in the game just now, and I mean it, he definitely does. I do feel like this is by design, because although the frame data on his down 1 or his down 3 is really bad, they do have okay range for what they are. And this does fit into his range design on paper, because it's clear the direction this character is in is where he is supposed to be a character played at a distance. The problem is, even a standard low poke is your last line of defense when you're being rushed down, and not having even a single one means that sometimes a matchup is decided the moment a character closes in space with plus frames. Trust me, when Johnny Cage gets in even a single time, he's kind of won the round, unless you can magically get out and prevent him from getting in again. Which, anyone that's ever fought Cage will say that it's not as simple as that. Any string that is 0 on block, normally considered neutral to most characters, is really bad for Quan because his pokes are too slow to ever win a trade. And any amount of plus frames, no matter how small, are an absolute decider for Quan Chi, because if something is even slightly plus, there is no way you can even hope the opponent's gonna mistime their button or something for you to get yours out first. You simply will not win in those exchanges. The problem is, those situations are so common in this game, and all it takes is one instance where the gap has been closed for all of these issues to arise. This wouldn't be so bad for QUAN if his keep away was, in fact, the best in the game, if his zoning was out of control and, dare I even say, broken. His lack of defensive options would actually make sense. I mean, it did in Mortal Kombat X because his zoning was even better, and he had all of this wild plus-on-block 50-50 vortex stuff. But he doesn't have any of that here. If QUAN even had one low poke that was as fast as the other characters, it just wouldn't be as bad, but as it stands, he's almost helpless when the pressure begins. Don't even get me started on his down 1 being unsafe on block, by the way. Being punished on block because you tried to do a single low poke is not a good feeling. Something that does make this worse for him is his armored sky drop. Now, I can't say confidently that it's as bad as the MKX version, because sky drop in this game can actually lead to really good damage with a Tremor cameo, and that's the one that I play. But the hitbox on it is another story entirely. This is your only armored move, and not only is it prone to being armor broken because it's slow, it has a bad habit of missing the opponent on the way down, or being too slow that the opponent can recover their button in time to block and punish you. Skydrop sadly is one of the weaker armored moves, and it means that combining weak armor and bad low pokes makes his defensive game by far the biggest struggle in the roster. Now, I know I've spent the last 10 minutes or so constantly talking about what I think is an issue with this character, but I have to say I do enjoy playing him on a basic level, because when he does work, he's incredibly fun. He is the kind of character I like, where there are options everywhere on screen, he's got a bit of setup, there's some cool stuff you could do with the bone cage, although I personally don't use it because Tremor can't really set that up, and his zoning is fun to enforce, especially when you've got a good matchup. And his combos are a lot of fun. I mean, he's an enjoyable character because I like playing this game, right? I think I've enjoyed every character I've played so far. However, that does not change the fact that at a high level, this character might not be relevant. And that is because many issues that he has currently are not fixable by the one mechanic that is meant to fix them: cameos. Since the very beginning of this game, it has been clear that cameos provide various tools and various options that if your character has a weakness somewhere, you might want to pick a cameo to address that. And in Quan Chi's current version, the only thing a cameo can actually help you with is improve your HP, because his other weaknesses that are massively exploitable and give you such insanely rough matchups are tied to bad defense. But it's not damage, it's not anything else like that, it is purely the speed of your buttons or the recovery on others. These are fundamental flaws that, regardless of what cameo you're playing, it's not going to fix the unsafe low pokes. It's not going to fix the slow buttons. It's not going to take your projectiles or your whiff punishable normals that are unbelievably minus and magically make them better. These are all flaws that Quan Chi has on his own, and cameos cannot fix that problem. Which means, regardless of what you're playing, the weaknesses are always going to be there, and they are by far the reason he is struggling in a high level at the moment. I'm not going to sit here with a straight face and say that Quan Chi cannot win. I think that Mortal Kombat 1 is generally quite a balanced game in that regard, because I've seen really good levels of success with pretty much every fighter in this game. Quan Chi may be, in my opinion, on the weaker side because of the issues I've mentioned today and more. However, I think that the character can still compete in tournament. It just comes down to the right player, and it can also come down to the right matchup. A problem that you're going to face with Quan Chi is that some of the matchups you're going to have a really hard time with are the very common characters, not only in regular online play, but tournaments also. There's a lot of Raiden, there's a lot of Johnny Cage. When that Kenshi sandwich gets started, you've got nothing to fight back. all of these characters are characters you're going to see a lot, and that is one of the main reasons a character can often struggle in high level, where their worst matchups are actually very common ones, and it holds them back by that alone. But sometimes it can just take the right player to conquer those challenges, and who knows, maybe we'll see. But right now, I feel like there are some pretty severe issues that hopefully I've been able to make clear on my side today. When it comes to how I hope things improve, I feel like a good starting point could be at least giving him a serviceable down 1. That one change would help him so much in so many matchups where the opponent gets in and you finally have something to fight back. Would I change the EX Skydrop? I don't know. His Skydrop was bad in X because it was kind of intended to not be a great defensive move, and that might be the same thing here. Would I give him all this crazy combo buffs and crazy zoning buffs? No, I wouldn't. I just think that fixing some of these fundamental flaws would be a fantastic start. A tiny bit of extra health. Maybe remove the gap in even one of his usable combo strings, so he's not going to put his life on the line the moment he's pressed a single button. Maybe change some of his health around so we can use more cameos, so we can experiment with less risk. I just think that he's a few small tweaks away from becoming a lot more viable without being way too broken. But either way, I appreciate you for watching this video. I know that this character is a bit of a hot topic at the moment, and I'm sure people are going to have their disputes and differences in the comment section. I only ask that you keep it civil and just be nice to each other, you know. We're talking about video games at the end of the day, nothing crazy serious. So look after yourselves, take care, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.